Welcome to Royal Daily Report, your premier destination for exclusive royal news and breaking palace stories. I'm your host, and what we're about to reveal today will shake the very foundations of everything you thought you knew about Harry and Meghan. A former insider has come forward with testimony that changes everything. Make sure you subscribe right now, because this is the story everyone will be talking about. Hit that subscribe button. Meghan's former nanny, some call her the housemaid, has finally stepped forward. And the moment she opened her mouth, the story the world thought it knew cracked in half. She says she lived inside that California mansion long enough to witness the truth behind the polished photos, the soft documentaries, the carefully staged smiles, and according to her, nothing. Not the family moments, not the pregnancies, not the image of a warm home matched what people were led to believe. She claims she saw things that never made the headlines, moments that were never meant for the public, including one explosive fight that left the house trembling and left Harry walking those halls like a man who didn't know which version of his life was real anymore. Let me stop right here and explain exactly who this woman is and why her testimony matters so much. This isn't just some random person making claims from a distance. This is someone who worked inside the Montecito mansion, the private residence where Harry and Meghan have been living since they left the UK. She was employed as a nanny or housemaid. The exact title varies depending on sources, but what's clear is that she had direct daily access to the home. She wasn't there for a few hours or a quick visit. She lived inside that house, working 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week for several months. That means she saw the real, unfiltered daily life of Harry and Meghan when the cameras weren't rolling, when there were no photographers outside, when it was just them and their staff behind closed doors. And what she witnessed, according to her testimony, was completely different from the image the public has been shown through carefully controlled media appearances, Netflix documentaries, and social media posts. Before we go any deeper into this bombshell revelation, I need you to pause right now and hit that subscribe button for Royal Daily Report. We are the only channel brave enough to bring you these insider testimonies and exclusive investigations that mainstream media refuses to touch. Turn on all notifications because we're dropping new evidence and updates daily. This story is just beginning, and you need to be with us every step of the way. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report right now, and let's uncover the truth together. But her most shocking claim isn't about the fights or the tension or even Meghan herself. It's about what she didn't see. Because this woman says that in all her months inside the mansion, 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week, she never once saw Archie. She never once saw Lilibet. Not a cry, not a laugh, not a toy left out of place. Nothing that proved to small children lived inside that enormous home. And now, with the silence finally broken, one question has exploded louder than ever. If Meghan's own nanny never saw Archie and Lilibet, why has the world never truly seen them either? And next, she shared deep inside information on Meghan and Harry most people did not know about. Think about what this means for a moment. A nanny is someone whose entire job revolves around taking care of children. That's literally the only reason you hire a nanny: to care for your kids, to feed them, bathe them, play with them, put them to sleep, watch over them. So when someone is hired as a nanny or housemaid in a home where 2 young children supposedly live, you would expect that person to interact with those children constantly. In a normal household with young kids, the nanny would be the person who spends the most time with them, especially if the parents are busy with work or other commitments. But this woman is saying that despite working 12-hour shifts, 5 days a week for months, she never saw Archie even once. She never saw Lilibet even once. Not in the morning when children typically wake up, not during the day when they're playing, not in the evening when they're getting ready for bed, not ever. And it's not just that she didn't personally interact with them. She's saying she never even saw evidence that children lived there. No baby bottles in the sink, no diapers in the trash, no baby monitors, no cribs, no high chairs, nothing. For anyone who has ever been around young children or has children of their own, you know this is impossible. Young kids leave traces of their existence everywhere. But according to this nanny, the Montecito mansion was eerily empty of any signs of child life. Before anyone ever stepped foot into that mansion as a nanny, they had to survive one of the strangest hiring processes the staff had ever heard of. According to people close to the search, Meghan had a very specific requirement. The nanny could not be too attractive, not glamorous, not polished, not someone who might stand out in photos. The goal was simple: blend in physically. In a home built around image, even the staff had to disappear into the background. But that was only the surface. Once candidates made it deeper into the interviews, the real rules appeared. They had to be available 24 hours a day. They couldn't have a partner. They couldn't have children of their own. They had to be willing to move at a moment's notice without asking where or why. It wasn't a job. It was a life takeover. Now let me explain why this hiring process is so unusual and what it reveals about how Harry and Meghan's household operates. First, the requirement about physical appearance. Most employers can't legally discriminate based on how someone looks when hiring. But apparently, Meghan wanted to make sure that any nanny hired would not be attractive enough to draw attention or potentially create any jealousy or competition. This isn't about finding the best qualified person for the job. It's about maintaining complete control over the image and ensuring that Meghan remains the center of attention even within her own home. The staff literally had to be forgettable. People who could blend into the background and never threaten Meghan's position as the star of the household. But the physical appearance requirement was just the beginning. The real rules were far more restrictive. Being available 24 hours a day means you essentially have no life of your own. You can't make plans with friends or family because you might be called to work at any moment. You can't pursue hobbies or interests because all your time belongs to your employer. The requirement that nannies couldn't have a partner is particularly strange and invasive. Why would it matter if someone has a boyfriend or husband? Because having a partner means you have someone in your life who you might talk to, someone who you might confide in about what you see at work. It's another control mechanism to ensure complete loyalty and silence. The requirement that they couldn't have children of their own is equally telling. Perhaps Meghan didn't want anyone who might compare her parenting to their own experience, or who might question decisions being made about the children. Are you seeing how deep this goes? This isn't just gossip. This is a systematic pattern of control and secrecy. If you're not subscribed to Royal Daily Report yet, you're missing out on the most thorough investigations into royal scandals. We don't just report headlines, we analyze the evidence, connect the dots, and show you what's really happening. Hit that subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and join thousands of viewers who trust Royal Daily Report for the unfiltered truth. Subscribe now, and before they ever shook Meghan or Harry's hand, they would undergo the most unusual test of all. The Sussex mansion looked peaceful from the outside. Sprawling gardens, soft sunlight, picture-perfect views. But according to those who worked inside, it operated more like a controlled environment. The trial shift wasn't just about showing childcare skills, it was a silent audition, watched from every angle. Hidden cameras recorded everything: how the candidates spoke, how they handled stress, how they treated the chef or the cleaners. Even the smallest mistake was captured on screen. By the time a nanny sat across from Meghan and Harry, decisions had already been made. The interview was just a final check to confirm the woman in the room behaved exactly like the woman on the footage. Inside that home, nothing happened without being seen. Nothing was private. Nothing was natural. It was a household built on control. Let me break down what this surveillance system reveals about the Sussex household, because it's absolutely crucial to understanding the full picture. Having hidden cameras watching potential employees during a trial shift is not normal. In most homes, when you're interviewing someone to work for you, you might have them do some tasks to demonstrate their skills, and you observe them directly. But installing hidden cameras to secretly record every movement, every word, every interaction with other staff members, that's surveillance at a level usually reserved for high security, government facilities, or corporate espionage operations. What does this tell us? It tells us that Meghan and Harry, though sources suggest this is primarily Meghan's doing, don't trust anyone. They assume everyone might be a threat, a potential leak, or someone who could expose something they want kept hidden. They're not just looking for competent childcare. They're looking for someone who can be completely controlled, someone who will follow orders without question, someone who will maintain absolute secrecy about whatever they witness inside that home. And think about what they were watching for, not just how the candidate interacted with children, which, remember, were apparently never seen anyway, but how they spoke to other staff members like the chef or cleaners. Why would that matter? Because they want to know if this person is someone who asks questions, who makes conversation, who might form bonds with other employees and potentially share information. They're building a staff of isolated individuals who don't talk to each other about what they see, ensuring that no one can piece together a complete picture of what's really happening in that house. And soon the staff would learn that the same control stretched far beyond the hiring process and straight into the heart of the family's most private story. Long before the public ever noticed anything unusual, tension was already brewing inside the Sussex household. And it began with something as simple as choosing a nanny. Prince Harry grew up under the care of a Norland nanny, the gold standard in royal childcare. Norland nannies are disciplined, discreet, and trained to protect both a child and a family's image with absolute loyalty. Naturally, Harry wanted the same stability for his own children. But Meghan, she didn't want that world. Not the uniforms, not the structure, not the traditions that came with it. We're uncovering layer after layer of this story, and every detail matters. Royal Daily Report is committed to bringing you comprehensive coverage that no other channel provides. If you're finding this information valuable, if you want to support independent journalism that asks hard questions, then subscribe to our channel right now. Hit that button, turn on those notifications, and make sure you're here for every revelation. We're not stopping until the full truth comes out. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report now. According to sources close to the home, Meghan demanded a different model entirely. Something modern, flexible, California-inspired. She wanted a nanny who felt like family, not staff. No outdated routines, no royal fingerprints, nothing that tied her new household to the old one. This disagreement might sound small, but inside the mansion, it was the start of a quiet divide. Harry leaned toward tradition. Meghan leaned toward total reinvention. And from that moment forward, every childcare decision reflected her vision, not his. The message was clear. The old rules were gone. The Sussex home would function by Meghan's design alone. This conflict over hiring a Norland nanny versus a California-style nanny is actually a microcosm of the larger power dynamic in Harry and Meghan's relationship and reveals who really makes the decisions in that household. Norland nannies represent something specific. They're trained at the prestigious Norland College in England. They wear recognizable uniforms. They follow established protocols that have been used by royal families and wealthy aristocratic families for generations. They're professional, they're experienced, and they're known for absolute discretion. Harry grew up with a Norland nanny, and by all accounts, he has fond memories of that care. So it makes perfect sense that he would want that same quality and consistency for his own children. But Meghan rejected this completely. Why? On the surface, she framed it as wanting something more modern and flexible. Something that reflected California values rather than stuffy British tradition. But look deeper and you'll see what this was really about. It was about Meghan asserting complete control over her household and rejecting anything that connected to Harry's past, his family, or his heritage. A Norland nanny would have been someone with independent authority based on their training and experience. They would have followed established childcare protocols that have been proven over generations. They might have had opinions about how things should be done, and they would have had the confidence and backing to share those opinions. Meghan didn't want that. She wanted someone who would follow her instructions without question. Someone who owed their loyalty entirely to her. Someone with no connection to the royal world that might create a competing source of authority in her home. But even with all this planning, something still didn't add up. Because even after building the perfect childcare system around her preferences, no one ever actually saw the children. When the maid talks about her time serving the Sussexes, she doesn't exaggerate. She doesn't guess. She simply describes what she saw every single day. She arrived before sunrise. She left around 8 at night. She moved through every room, every hallway, every corner of the home. And in all that time, she never saw Archie. Not once. She never saw Lilibet. Not once. Let me really emphasize this point, because it's the heart of this entire revelation. This woman worked in that house for months. Not days, not weeks, but months. She was there from before sunrise until 8 p.m., which means she was there during all the times when young children would be awake and active. Toddlers and young children typically wake up early. Between 6 and 7 a.m., they're active throughout the morning. They have lunch, they might nap in the afternoon, and then they're active again in the evening before bedtime around 7 or 8 p.m. This nanny's schedule covered literally all of those hours. She wasn't working a night shift when the kids would be asleep. She was there during prime kid hours. And during all that time, across all those months, She never saw either child even once. Not a glimpse, not a sound, nothing. She didn't even see signs that children lived there. No baby socks on the laundry table. No picture books on the floor. No snacks left half-eaten. No stroller by the door. Not even a stray crayon under the couch. Homes with little children always carry a certain kind of joyful chaos. Toys appear in places they don't belong. Fingerprints show up on glass. Baby monitors hum quietly in the background. But this home, it was silent, almost too perfect. As if the idea of children existed there, but the children themselves did not. Anyone who has spent time around young children, whether as a parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, or just visiting friends with kids, knows exactly what a house with young children looks like. It's impossible to keep perfectly clean and organized because kids are constantly playing, eating, moving around, and leaving little traces of their presence everywhere. Even the most organized, neat parents with the best-behaved children will have some evidence of kid life scattered around. A sippy cup on the kitchen counter. A teddy bear on the couch. Board books piled on the coffee table. A basket of toys in the living room. Cheerios mysteriously stuck to the bottom of your shoe. Children's artwork hung on the refrigerator. A potty training seat in the bathroom. The smell of baby wipes or diaper cream. Little fingerprints and handprints on windows and mirrors that you just cleaned yesterday. This is normal. This is what life with young children looks like. But according to this maid, the Montecito mansion had none of this. It was pristine, quiet, perfect, as if it were a showroom or a museum, not a family home with 2 young children. This testimony is absolutely explosive, and Royal Daily Report is the channel bringing it directly to you with the analysis and context you need to understand what it means. If you value this kind of fearless, thorough journalism, you need to subscribe right now. We're not backed by royal PR teams or influenced by palace pressure. We report the truth no matter who it exposes. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and support independent royal coverage. Subscribe to Royal Daily Report now. The maid says the silence became so noticeable that it almost felt loud. Day after day, she expected something to break the stillness. A cry, a laugh, even a tiny footstep, but nothing ever did. And then came the detail that shook everything even more. The maid had grown used to keeping quiet. The rules inside the Sussex mansion were strict, and privacy was enforced like a law. But when the Netflix documentary finally came out, she watched it out of simple curiosity, wondering how the home she knew so well would be shown to the world. She expected small edits or pretty lighting. She did not expect an entirely different reality. This is where the testimony becomes truly damning, because now we're not just talking about what she didn't. See, we're talking about what the public was shown versus what she knows to be true from living inside that house. When Harry and Meghan's Netflix documentary was released, it was presented as an intimate, authentic look inside their lives. The whole point of the documentary was supposedly to show the real Harry and Meghan, the people behind the royal titles, living their genuine daily lives in California. The public was meant to believe they were seeing actual unfiltered moments from the Sussex household. But this maid, who actually lived in that house during the relevant time period, is saying that what appeared in the documentary was not real. It wasn't the house she knew. It wasn't the life she witnessed. It was a carefully constructed fiction designed to create a false narrative for public consumption. Scene after scene flashed across the screen. Meghan cradling a belly, Harry laughing as he chased children through bright gardens. Moments of joy captured in soft, slow motion. But to the maid, something was wrong. The rooms were different. The angles didn't match. The shots of Meghan pregnant could not have been filmed during the time she worked there. And the garden scenes, those cheerful clips of Harry and Meghan letting chickens roam while Archie ran around, felt like a fairy tale she had never witnessed. Let's analyze this piece by piece, because each element is significant. First, the maid says the rooms shown in the documentary were different from the rooms in the actual house. This isn't about camera angles making things look slightly different. She's saying the rooms themselves, the layout, the furniture, the decoration, were not the rooms in the Montecito mansion. This suggests that at least some scenes in the supposedly authentic documentary were filmed in a different location entirely. Perhaps a rented house or a set designed to look like their home. Why would you do that? Why not just film in your actual house if you're trying to show your real life? The only reason would be if you're trying to hide what your actual house looks like or what's actually happening there. Second, The shots of Meghan pregnant couldn't have been filmed during the time the maid worked there. The maid knows exactly when she was employed. She knows what Meghan looked like during that period. And she's saying the pregnancy footage shown in the documentary doesn't match that timeline. This is huge because it means the pregnancy images were either filmed at a different time, suggesting they might be from an earlier period, or even fabricated entirely, or they were staged specifically for the documentary using a fake pregnancy belly. Third, and perhaps most tellingly, the garden scenes with Harry, Meghan, and Archie playing with chickens. These iconic, heartwarming scenes that showed them as hands-on parents living a simple California life. The maid says she never witnessed anything like this actually happening. She acknowledges that yes, there is a chicken coop on the property. But no, she never saw children playing there. She never saw family bonding moments in the garden. Those scenes were staged, performed for the camera, not captured, documentary style from real life. Yes, she says the chicken coop existed, but no, she never saw a child playing there. Not Archie, not Lilibet, not even once. To her, that coop wasn't a family playground. It was a prop set up to create the image of a warm, hands-on parenting life the staff inside the home never saw. As she watched the documentary, she felt the same cold unease she had carried for months. Not because it looked happy, but because she knew it wasn't real. The world was being shown a story. She had lived the truth, and they were nothing alike. Think about the implications here. Harry and Meghan went to great lengths to create this documentary, supposedly to tell their authentic story. They opened up their lives to cameras. They sat for interviews. They shared personal moments, all under the premise that they were finally revealing the real truth about their lives after being silenced and misrepresented by the royal family and the media. But according to someone who actually lived inside that house, the documentary wasn't truth at all. It was another layer of deception, more carefully constructed PR designed to manipulate public opinion. The chicken coop wasn't a genuine part of their family life. It was a prop, a stage set designed to communicate a specific image. The garden scenes weren't real moments captured on film. They were performances. And if they were willing to fabricate these intimate family moments for the documentary, what else have they fabricated? What other parts of their carefully crafted public narrative are simply staged performances rather than reality? We're getting to the explosive conclusion of this testimony. And if you're not subscribed to Royal Daily Report, you're making a huge mistake. This is investigative journalism at its finest, connecting insider testimony with documented evidence to reveal the truth. Subscribe right now, hit that notification bell, and make sure you're part of our community of viewers who refuse to accept manufactured narratives. Royal Daily Report, where we dig deeper than anyone else. Subscribe now. If the documentary was the polished surface, the inside of the mansion was the locked vault beneath it. The maid describes the rules not as guidelines, but as restrictions designed to keep every unapproved moment hidden. The gates were the first boundary. Your phone was taken before you walked inside. Bags were checked for recording devices. Even a forgotten smartwatch could send the security team into a quiet panic. Every worker, maids, chefs, gardeners, drivers, knew the same truth. Inside these walls, nothing could ever be documented. Not a photo, not a quiet conversation, not an accidental glimpse of anything real. The level of security and control described here goes far beyond normal celebrity privacy measures. Yes, many famous people have private homes with gates and security. Yes, some ask staff to sign confidentiality agreements. But physically confiscating phones before allowing staff to enter, checking bags for recording devices, panicking over a forgotten this is the kind of security protocol you'd expect at a military intelligence facility or a corporate research lab where highly sensitive secrets are being protected, not at a family home where two young children are supposedly being raised. What are they so desperate to prevent from being documented? What could possibly be so secretive that staff members can't even have their phones with them? The obvious answer is that there's something happening in that house, or more accurately, something not happening in that house that would completely contradict the public narrative, if it were ever captured on camera or documented in any way. It didn't feel like a home where children were being raised. It felt like a place where secrets lived. Staff described the atmosphere as heavy, like every room carried a silent instruction. Do your job. Ask nothing. Share nothing. See nothing. The more time she spent inside that house, the more the maid felt that the silence wasn't accidental. It was intentional, carefully maintained, carefully enforced. This description of the atmosphere is chilling. Homes where young children are being raised have a very specific feeling and energy. Even with hired help, even with nannies and staff, there's still a warmth, a sense of life and activity and family. Children bring joy and chaos in equal measure. There's laughter, sometimes tears, questions, games, bedtime stories, family meals, all the normal rhythms of family life. But this maid is describing something completely different. A cold, oppressive atmosphere where staff were expected to function like robots, doing their assigned tasks without curiosity, without conversation, without any human connection or awareness of what was really happening in the house. That's not a home. That's a facility operating under lockdown protocols to protect a secret. And yet, even with all the secrecy, she noticed something about the people who lived there that shocked her more than any security rule. When the cameras were around, Meghan and Harry appeared united, glowing in sync. But behind closed doors, the maid saw a different picture, one without the edited smiles and perfect angles. She describes Meghan as present only when filming was planned. Her energy shifted when the cameras were gone, her tone sharper, her movements precise, as if every moment was calculated. This observation about Meghan's behavior, changing dramatically depending on whether cameras were present, is incredibly revealing. It confirms what many observers have suspected, that Meghan is constantly performing, constantly aware of how she's being perceived, and presenting a carefully crafted persona rather than her authentic self. The fact that she was present only when filming was planned suggests that she didn't actually spend much time in the Montecito house at all, or at least not in the areas where staff would see her. She would appear for scheduled filming sessions to capture content for social media, documentaries, or PR purposes, and then disappear again. Her tone sharper and movements precise when cameras were off suggests a very controlling, calculating personality, someone who is relaxed and warm for public consumption, but demanding and exact with staff in private. Harry, on the other hand, seemed quieter, smaller somehow. She often found him silent after arguments, moving through the house like someone trying not to disturb the air around him. He didn't carry the brightness people expected from a new father. Instead, he seemed weighed down by stress, by tension, or by something she couldn't name. The marriage didn't feel like a home. It felt like a company with two executives, one giving the orders, the other trying to keep the peace. The description of Harry is heartbreaking and concerning. This isn't the image of a happy new father living his best life in California freedom. This is a man who seems trapped, stressed, diminished. Walking through the house like someone trying not to disturb the air around him suggests someone who is constantly on edge, afraid of triggering conflict, trying to make himself small and invisible. Being silent after arguments indicates that arguments were frequent enough to be a pattern the maid noticed, and looking weighed down by stress, by tension, or by something she couldn't name suggests that Harry is carrying the burden of knowledge or guilt about something significant, possibly the very secret this maid is now exposing, that the children aren't actually living in that house. The characterization of their marriage as a company with two executives, where one giving the orders, the other trying to keep the peace, perfectly captures the power dynamic. This isn't a partnership of equals. Meghan is clearly the dominant force, making decisions and issuing commands. Harry has been reduced to a subordinate role, trying to maintain harmony by going along with whatever Meghan wants, even if it makes him miserable. This insider testimony is absolutely devastating to Harry and Meghan's carefully constructed narrative, and Royal Daily Report is the channel brave enough to bring it to you. We're not afraid of lawsuits or PR pressure. We report the facts, we analyze the evidence, and we let you decide the truth. If you believe in journalism that holds powerful people accountable, subscribe to Royal Daily Report right now. Turn on notifications, share this video, and help us spread the truth. Subscribe now. And through all of this, one thing remained painfully consistent. There were still no children, not in the halls, not in the garden, not in the nursery, not anywhere. And that emptiness, combined with the secrecy, the silence, and the controlled narratives, leads us into the question that has now become impossible to ignore. When you gather every detail, every quiet moment, every missing clue, the story forms a picture you can't look away from. A woman works inside the mansion for months, but never sees Meghan pregnant. A home is designed around childcare rules, but no nanny ever cares for a child. A documentary shows family life, But according to the maid, the scenes weren't filmed in the home she served in. A chicken coop becomes a symbol of simple living, but no child ever played there. A house is filled with surveillance and restrictions, yet empty of the joyful noise that children bring. Let me connect all of these pieces into a coherent picture, because when you step back and look at the full scope of what this maid is revealing, a clear pattern emerges. Harry and Meghan have built an elaborate system designed to maintain a public narrative that children live with them in Montecito. While the actual evidence suggests those children are not regularly present in that house, and possibly not present at all, the extreme security measures, the confiscation of phones and recording devices, the restriction on staff having partners or children of their own who they might confide in, the surveillance of trial employees, the rejection of traditional Norland nannies who might have external authority and connections, all of this serves one purpose: to ensure that no one can document or reveal what's actually happening or not happening inside that house. The documentary and social media posts provide carefully staged evidence of family life that the public accepts as proof that children exist and live there. But someone who actually worked inside that house is saying none of it was real. Meghan appears in the mansion mostly when cameras arrive. Harry walks its halls in silence, and the staff, those who see the most, say the same thing again and again. There were no children. Not once, not ever. So now the question becomes the quiet drumbeat beneath everything else. If the people who lived inside that house never saw Archie or Lilibet, then where were they? This is the question that demands an answer. If the children aren't in the Montecito mansion, where are they? There are really only a few possibilities, each with different implications. 1. The children exist and live somewhere else entirely, with other caretakers, and Harry and Meghan only bring them to the house occasionally for photo shoots and staged appearances. 2. The children exist, but are kept hidden in a completely separate part of the property, or in a different property altogether, possibly for security reasons that have never been publicly explained. 3. The children don't exist at all, and the entire narrative of their births and lives has been fabricated. Each of these scenarios raises serious questions about truthfulness, parenting, and what Harry and Meghan have been telling the public for years. It is the question the documentary didn't answer. The question no photograph has explained. The question that grows louder with every detail shared by those who worked behind the scenes. And maybe that's why the silence around the children feels so heavy. Because silence only grows when something is being carefully, deliberately hidden. The world was shown a perfect family. But according to the woman who lived inside that mansion, the greatest mystery of the Sussex story isn't what we've seen. It's what we haven't. Think about this. In all the years since Archie's birth was announced in 2019, how many clear, unambiguous photos or videos of him have been released? Very few, and most of those could have been filmed anywhere, at any time, with children who might or might not actually be Archie and Lilibet. Compare this to William and Kate's children, who have been photographed extensively at official events, family occasions, and even in candid moments. The Sussex children remain essentially invisible, despite Harry and Meghan's supposedly more relaxed California lifestyle, where they're free from royal constraints. If anything, you'd expect to see more of Archie and Lilibet than we see of George, Charlotte, and Louis. But we see less, far less. And according to this maid, the reason is simple. The children aren't there to be seen. And now that the silence has cracked, one truth is clear. This story is far from over. And the next chapter, whatever it reveals, may be the one that finally answers the question no one can dismiss anymore. Where were Archie and Lilibet? The fact that this testimony has now come forward, that someone from inside the house has broken their silence despite all the surveillance and control mechanisms, means the carefully constructed wall of secrecy is beginning to crumble. And once one person speaks out, others often follow. There may be other staff members, other people who worked in or visited that house, who now feel emboldened to share what they witnessed, or more accurately, what they didn't witness. The truth, whatever it is emerging. And Harry and Meghan's ability to control the narrative through staged documentaries and social media posts is being challenged by first-hand testimony from people who actually lived behind the scenes. This story is indeed far from over, and the revelations still to come may finally expose the full truth about one of the greatest mysteries in modern royal history. That concludes today's explosive coverage on Royal Daily Report of the bombshell testimony from Meghan's former maid. What we've heard today raises profound questions about the truth behind the Sussex narrative and the very existence of Archie and Lilibet in the Montecito mansion. An insider who spent months working in that house, who had access to every room, who was there during all waking hours when young children should have been visible, is telling us clearly she never saw them. Not once. Combined with the surveillance, the secrecy, the staged documentary footage, and Harry's obvious stress, a picture emerges that directly contradicts everything the public has been told. Where are Archie and Lilibet? That's the question that won't go away. And it's the question we at Royal Daily Report will continue investigating until we have answers. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel because this story is developing rapidly. Hit that subscribe button right now, turn on all notifications, and join our community of truth seekers who refuse to accept carefully crafted PR narratives. Share this video with everyone who needs to know what's really happening behind the palace walls, or in this case, behind the Montecito mansion gates. Leave a comment below with your thoughts. Do you believe the maid's testimony? Where do you think the children are? Let us know. Thank you for watching Royal Daily Report. I'm your host, and remember, the truth may be hidden, but it can never stay buried forever. We'll see you in the next video. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and never stop asking questions.